Hi everybody, Leo Babauta from Zen Habits here. I'm really glad to be here with you. Today we're going to talk about structure versus flexibility. And this is when it comes to goal setting, when it comes to how we structure our day, our daily routines, how we structure a project, really habits as well. And so with anything that we are trying to create in our lives, in our business, at work, in our personal lives, with our habits, we have a choice, maybe a spectrum between one side, a lot of flexibility, and the other side, a lot of structure. So, structure could be something like, I am going to do this every day at this time, and I will have some accountability, and there's going to be consequences, and I'm going to be doing some reporting on this. And so we can add a lot of structure into whatever we're doing. Another example of structure is with a workout. I want to do workouts Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. I'm going to do it at this time at the gym. I'm going to do these exercises, and it's going to be structured exactly this way, with this amount of rest and this amount of sets and reps and all of that kind of stuff. And so structure can be very detailed. It can be really built out, or it could be very minimal. And the more minimal that the structure is, the more it's along the lines of flexible. So, for example, a very flexible structure could be, I'm going to do some writing this month. That's very flexible. When will I do it? Who knows? Maybe I'll do it all on the last 2 days of the month. Maybe I'll do it every single day for 5 minutes, but I'm just going to kind of figure that out without the extra structure. All I put in is I will do it this month and I will do some writing. How much? I don't know yet. That's a lot of flexibility. We can add more structure. I'm going to do, you know, uh, 10,000 words of writing this month, or I'm going to do 1,000 words a day every weekday. So we've now added more structure in, and it's less flexible. But you notice I said every weekday, but I didn't say, um, what time. Have I blocked it off? Do I have reminders? Do I have accountability? None of that. And so I can just do it any time during the weekdays. I could remove the weekdays and say I'm going to do it a few days a week, let's say 3 days a week, but I can do it any days. It doesn't have to be on particular days. That's more flexible, less structure. If I wanted to say, exactly when it's going to happen, at a certain time, on certain days, at a certain place, with certain people, the more that I add these details in, the more that I have more detailed structure, more built out structure, and less flexibility. So honestly, you can do either, and really finding the balance between them, isn't always a clear cut thing. So people ask me, should I have more structure or more flexibility? And how do I decide which is which? So let's talk about that in this video. So let's take a couple of examples to kind of walk through it. So let's say someone's like, I want to form a writing habit or a meditation habit. Let's say both. I want to do both of those. Okay, great. So for the meditation habit, maybe I want to do it really whenever I have some free time, but I want to do it every day. And I want to do it for 10 minutes a day. And I want to do it right over there in that part of the room with that meditation cushion, and I'm going to have a timer. Okay, so there's some structure here. It's going to be every day, 10 minutes a day, in a certain place with a timer, right? But what you notice that it doesn't have is an exact time of day. That's a little bit more along the lines of flexible. It's every day, so there's some structure, and it's for 10 minutes, but I can put that 10 minutes wherever I want to, depending on what's going on in my life. That's pretty flexible. Now, for some people, that's going to work just fine, right? They're going to be like, I'm going to remember because I have my meditation cushion there. I'm going to walk past it 20 times a day. And at some point, I'm going to say, you know what? Let me sit down and let me set my timer and let me meditate. And I'm going to do that pretty well. And so for someone who feels a certain amount of confidence in that, I would say try it. We don't know if a more flexible and less structured kind of approach will work unless we try it out. And so they might try it and they might be like, you know what? I've tried this for 3 days and I actually didn't do it at all. I remembered because I walked past the cushion, but I just kept telling myself I can do it later. I've got a bunch of things to do, and it just didn't work. So for that person, they might want to build a little bit more structure. Maybe they're like, I have to do it before 10 a.m. And there's still flexibility there. I could do it at 7, I could do it at 8:30, I can do it at 9, but I have to do it before 10. So there's a little bit more structure there. And for them, that might actually work. They see it and they're like, it's almost 10. I better sit down, right? And so that then might have them actually sitting down. We've added a little bit more structure and now they're sitting down. But let's say that that is still too flexible and they're like, you know what? I think I need to actually choose a time. And they choose a time. And so, they're like 8 a.m. and now they're actually starting to show up for it. But maybe they're like, actually, I keep forgetting at 8 a.m. I've got something else going on usually, and I need to have some kind of reminder. So they set a reminder and then they start showing up for that. But maybe that didn't work and they're not showing up for it and they see the reminder and they're like, well, big deal if I don't do it, big whoop. And so now they need a little bit of accountability. So now they say to one other person, I am going to do this at 8 a.m. and I'll text you afterward. And if I don't do that, you know, there's some consequence. Or maybe they don't do the consequence. They don't have to have a consequence. They just say, I will text you afterward. And that works. But if it doesn't, maybe they say, you know what, I'm going to put a consequence in that. I'm going to have to do 10 push-ups if I don't text you, at 8:15. So what you've noticed here is we started with very little structure and we started to add structure in if needed. If they didn't need it at any step along the way that I described there, they could just go with that flexible structure. It was only if they're not showing up for it that they needed to add more in. And so this goes with a saying that you might have heard of, which is structure is earned. What that means is we don't want to just build out really complex structure for a project, for a habit, for a goal, just right at the start. We want to only have that amount of structure if we know that that's needed. And the way we know that it's needed is to start out without it. Start at the more flexible end and then start to add structure in as needed. So you do a little bit of experiment, a bunch of little experiments. And if it's working, then stay with that. Stay more flexible. We want to prefer flexible and only add structure as needed. And this way, the structure has earned itself because we've seen that it's needed here, as opposed to putting it all in place before we actually know if it's needed or not. Okay, so let's take a look at the writing example. I want to write every day. So for that, same kind of thing. We want to start really flexible. Might not even say every day. You're like, I'm going to write, some days. As long as I am actually like moving forward, great. So you notice actually it's working. That's all I needed. I just had to kind of like set that intention and I'm showing up and I'm writing and it's great. But what if you're not showing up for it? Okay, now I need to add a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you're actually showing up for it in the way that you want. Now, the way that you can do this is you can set little experiments for a certain amount of time and then review how that went. I like 1 week experiments. So I'm going to do this for a week and see how that goes. Okay, how did that go? Check in with yourself, let's say on Sunday. And Sunday comes, you review it. Did I do it as intended? Actually, I didn't. And you can give all the reasons why. That's totally fine. I had visitors, I was traveling, I got sick. Totally fine. But do you need more structure? Or is it flexible just fine? So that's how we would do it, is in 1 week experiments, starting with more flexibility, less structure, and only adding in structure as needed. Now, for some people, they might have something that's really built out. And what you'll find is if you have a lot of structure, let's say you take on a project and you're like, okay, I'm going to do a timeline and it's going to have deadlines and it's going to have, check-ins with certain people and it's going to have just a ton of structure. And that's at the start, right? If you tend to lean that way, heavy structure right from the start without it being earned, maybe you found that that's worked, and so maybe it actually is earned. But let's imagine that you tend towards more structure. What you might notice about that, first of all, is that you're doing it because you're afraid that you're not going to actually show up for it. You're afraid you're going to fail, and maybe you don't trust yourself. So if that's the case, maybe a lot of structure works really well for you, and fine, just run with it. It's a well-oiled machine. Just go with a lot of structure. But if you notice, oh, actually, it's because I'm really worried I'm not going to make it. But on the other hand, it also feels very heavy, very oppressive, very like administrative heavy. I have to do a lot of work just to keep the structure going. When we add structure, there's a lot of administration that can be put into it so that you're doing less of the actual work and more of the actual administration. If you want to write, but like of that hour, half of it is spent with administrative stuff to try and like log everything and all of that. What you'll notice is like it feels really heavy, and I would actually like more flexibility. So in that case, we can actually head in the opposite direction when it feels like it's really weighing you down and you would like a little bit more flexibility. You can actually let go of some of that structure, simplify a little bit. What do you think is not needed? What would feel really good to go without? If you're like logging every single thing every 5 minutes, maybe like let go of the log and just do a little reflection at the end of the week or something like that. It's a lot less administration, a lot less like heaviness to it, and feels more free. And you're like, a weekly reflection sounds really nice. So simplify a bit, give yourself more flexibility, and head in that other direction towards flexibility. And what you'll find is sometimes that can be very liberating. If it feels liberating and you really enjoy it more and you're still showing up for it pretty well, then I say keep that going. But if you're like, you know what? I let go of a whole bunch of structure and it was too much, and then you can course correct going the other way. Some people are going to tend towards flexibility and be like, I don't want anything holding me down. These are people who have a difficult relationship to structure. They feel oppressed by it, like it's a cage. And for those people, I would really encourage you to see like, how is structure actually supporting what you want to create in your life? Other people really tend towards a lot of heavy structure. And for them, maybe structure feels like a safety net, which is great. But if you're like, actually, I would like a little bit more flexibility, for those people, what I would encourage is let go of some of that structure, simplify a bit, keep the things that you think are essential, but try it for a week or two without so much heaviness. Less administration might mean more doing, and that can feel really good to start to make more forward progress without having to bring this entire contraption along with you, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's what I've got to share with you in terms of structure. I really like to add it as needed, but if you're not showing up for it, just consider it needed and try an experiment for a week where you add more. See if that actually helps you to show up. My friends, I've really enjoyed making this video. I hope this has been a helpful talk. Give it a thumbs up if you liked the video, if it was helpful. Leave a comment. Let me know what was useful. If you have questions, if you have any feedback for me, I really appreciate it. And subscribe if this was helpful and you would like more of this content in the future. Share it with people who could use some Zen habits in their lives. And just know that I'm grateful no matter what. I appreciate you. Thanks, my friends. I'll talk to you later.